We are living in historic times where the one-time stable moral values of our society have been challenged and denied. I'm talking about life issues that affect us all. This includes the redefinition of marriage, same-sex marriage, and the accommodation of homosexuality. These wrong notions and immoral practices would not at one time have been admitted, but they are now accepted, and Christian values are being overthrown and rejected by the masses. As a result, this has opened up the door to many vices and immoral practices that will be accepted and approved by many. In order for anyone to rationally combat or resist this move and keep oneself from being swept away with this flood and becoming part of this corrupt society, we need to understand the rational reasons why our historic values, all of which truths are taught in the gospel, and then we need to be governed by these truths. One of the important truths of the gospel that was rescued at the Reformation was that of the teaching of the total depravity of man, or of the total depravity of human nature. It is this reality which accounts for the moral decline of our world, and it is the gospel of Christ that brings deliverance from this condition. The gospel of Christ is designed to preserve and rescue us from this decline. In essence, the term total depravity refers to the basic human condition of us all that was brought upon us by the sinful actions of our first parents, Adam and Eve, in the Garden of Eden. It was Adam's sin that brought about a change in human nature. When God created them in the beginning, he was very pleased with his work, and things were very good. However, both Adam and Eve had taken and eaten the fruit that was forbidden them. When Adam took the fruit from his wife, and at her suggestion, he ate it, the eyes of Adam and Eve were both opened to know both good and evil. Both Adam and Eve were corrupted in a moral and physical way. Death immediately took place in a spiritual sense, and both Adam and Eve came under the domain of death. God held Adam and Eve responsible for their sins, and the whole of humanity were to feel the effects. The sad effects were that Adam and Eve had been made in the moral image of God. They were morally perfect, knowing only good and no evil. Adam was set to govern the creation and name all the creatures, and Eve was made as his complement to be a helpmeet for him. The effects of the fall was to ruin their once innocent state. Their hearts were ruined. That brought with it the capacity for the human heart to commit all forms of evil and all the wrong and the sinful ways that we experience to this day in our world. It was their sin that brought this death to the human race. God cursed the ground for man's sake, and Adam was to work by the sweat of his brow, and the woman to those pains in childbearing, and the serpent to slither. Once they'd eaten the forbidden fruit, their eyes were opened. They knew they were naked, and as a result, they made themselves aprons to cover themselves. The effect on human nature was dramatic, and all humanity came under the same sentence of death. We all, in fact, the whole world, being united in Adam, derive our sinful human condition from our first parents. We're all sinful, and we're all fallen, and capable of all forms of moral corruption. This is the meaning of total depravity. Not that we are all as bad as men can be, but we are all capable of serious immoral actions in thought and deed. It is because of the moral changes taking place in our society that we need to address these issues. It is the gospel of Christ that not only identifies the problems, but also sets forth the way of deliverance and points the way that we should go. This is my first instalment. Please click the subscribe button to encourage me to do more. And I would like you to buy a copy of my book, Converted on LSD. This was written to tell you all about these things.